My name is Jerry Eddy, and I'm the co-chair of the programs today for the Centerville-Washington Diversity Council. My co-chair is in the colored skirt, right up here, multicolored skirt, up here waving her hand, Roberta Taylor. And we welcome each and every one of you here tonight. We know this is a topic that we can't escape, especially here in Ohio, especially here in Southwest Ohio. So we want to share with the panel who's going to share with us their particular stories, but sometimes it's helpful for us to put things in perspective. Some of those perspectives are 79% of all unauthorized immigrants were here before 2010. The immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, who are humans, not aliens, are here legally. And we know what happened as a result of the debate. One candidate mentioned the term re-immigration Wednesday night in a speech, campaign speech. Re-immigration is a European policy of sending everyone who is not white, whether they're citizens or not, back to where they originated. Enough said. It's important to listen to more than one president, in my judgment. One of the good ones to listen to is George Washington. The bosom of America is open to receive not only the opulent and respected stranger, but the oppressed and persecuted of all nations and religions, whom we shall welcome to a participation of all our rights and privileges. Another good one to listen to is Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan said, if we ever close the door to new Americans, our leadership in the world would soon be lost. It's important that we don't listen to the angriest and loudest voice in the room, that we place it in context. And just for context's sake, we'll limit it to Ohio, although since immigrant crime is one of the topics talked about, we should know that immigrants are 60% less likely than native-born to commit a felony resulting in incarceration. For every one person murdered by an immigrant, 5 are murdered by native-born. 97% of all fentanyl arrests are made at legal points of entry, not on the immigrant paths coming here from other nations. 5% of Ohio are folks born outside our nation. They pay over $8 billion in taxes every year. They are worth $18.7 billion in economic production in Ohio, creating jobs because many of them have a leaning toward entrepreneurship or in other individual ways of self-employment. They create jobs, they pay taxes, the people that they contract with for supplies, buy homes, buy meals, food, automobiles. We would be a poorer state without our immigrant population. And when it can happen to one of us, it can happen to many of us. I think we all concur that an informed citizenry is the best defense democracy has. And that rational arguments will not persuade many people, but individual relationships can. And that's why we offer a panel of folks who will share their individual experience. Welcome let me do two housekeeping things. One is turn down your device. Make sure you have the sound on 0 sound. And two, make sure you scan the code, the QR code that we have available at each of the entrances, as well as at the dessert table, as well as we'll have it up here on the screen. Scan that code in order to take a survey of tonight's program. We appreciate your input and evaluation. With that, I will turn it over to Megan Lemaster, our moderator for the evening. Megan is with Centerville High School.
Thank you. I just want to thank you so much for coming. I'm just going to talk for just a quick second. So I actually feel like I'm a member of two communities. I work here in Centerville, and I just put my heart and soul into this community, but I also live in Springfield. So many of you have heard about Springfield a lot lately. And we planned this topic, months ago. We knew it was timely, but we had no idea how timely it would become in this week. And it's been a crazy week for us in Springfield and my family and lots of our neighbors. But I heard something the other day, and I just wanted to share it. It said that we're in contentious times right now, and when we have animosity, it breeds gullibility. And that really struck me because it's just been just heart-wrenching, the things that we believe about people that we see as other, and how gullible we can be to believe the most outrageous things, and that connectedness is the antidote. And so that's what we're doing here tonight. I'm just really grateful to the panelists for sharing their stories, being vulnerable with us, and for all of you that came to have that connection. So I'm going to let them speak. So they're going to introduce themselves when they answer their first question, but we have Gulzada Anwari, Selena Ghaben, Jeanette Horwitz, and Dr. Jose Torres here. So I'm going to go ahead and ask our first question. So our first question goes to Gulzada here. So looking back on your journey, how do you think your experience as an immigrant and English learner has influenced your life today?
Is it working? Oh yeah. Hey everyone. So first of all, I'm really happy to be here and be talking to you all. And some horrible stuff is happening right now. So the timing is really perfect how it's working out. But I guess I can start with taking you guys to a timeline of our family history. So I'm originally from Afghanistan, and I grew up in mountainous region. It's called Bamiyan. It's the land of Buddhas. You guys probably have seen the 2001 horrible incident where the Taliban blew up the big Buddhas in there, and it was like a worldwide history how they just put it down. My house is right in front of that area. So in 19th century, one of the king of Afghanistan, they committed like a mass genocide of our people. As you can see, I don't look like a typical Afghan. I'm more on the Asian side of Afghan. It's like when I talk to people normally, they think I'm like from China or South Korea or Japan, because I look much more different than a typical Afghan that they do in there. Because our people been ancient in there, and we lived in mountainous region in there. And because of that, there was multiple genocide against our people back in the day in Afghanistan. So turn back to 2000 when the Taliban attacked Afghanistan in the first round, and that's when my family and us, we fled to Pakistan. We became refugees for like 3-4 years in there. And afterward, we came back because the U.S. Army, the U.S. military came to Afghanistan for fighting the terrorism and all that stuff. So we came back to Afghanistan. And then that's where my journey kind of started. So I was like a young kid in there. And then we were raised really like poor in a sense. Like we were from a really low income because our house was burned down by the Taliban. And when the Taliban attacked, they like killed like a lot of people in my village. And we lost a lot. Like I lost my uncle to the Taliban and all that stuff. We were lucky because we fled to Pakistan, but when we came back and we rebuilt our life from the zero, and that's how we went. And then to continue forward, my dad, he was a knowledge seeker. He always told us to please go after education, because that's the only way, that's the only escape from exile in Afghanistan. And then that's when my brothers, they started learning ABC because when the U.S. Army came in, they needed interpreters to fight with them along the war side. It's like they were in great need of that. And then I was really young, I couldn't do much, but then my brother joined the Army, and both of them were translator for the Army. And they went to missions with the U.S. troops, and Americans came to our house. We had a really great relationship with the Army people, U.S. Armies. And then after that, I started learning English, and then that kind of transcended my life as well because I went to Kabul. It was an international school, and that's where I went to learn English and also to go get education, American education in there, because that was the only school that provided a high-quality education in whole Afghanistan. And when I went there, I was like in 7th, 8th grade, and after that, I got the chance to migrate to U.S. because the Taliban said that if the Americans don't close down this school, they're gonna blow it up like any other school that they did back in the day. So I ended up in Springfield. And yeah, I went to Catholic school in Springfield, a small Catholic school in there. And I meet some greatest people in my life, and I never felt any different than, it was amazing because the notion that I had in my mind, it was that it's going to be a really white school, and things are going to be much more different because when I would talk to people, first thing, it was really interesting because they would ask, they're like, how the people are treating you? And I'm like, that's so interesting that you asked because I have never felt different because these people were some of the nicest people that I ever encountered because they welcomed me at their home and they treated me like their own. Till today, some of them don't even know what's my religion or any of that because it was a Catholic school. We started with prayer. We ended with prayer. I followed. It was beautiful. I learned a lot. Until today, some of the students don't know. I messed with them. I was like, I'm a Buddhist. And they were like, oh, that's cool. They don't know that I'm from Afghanistan and all that. So it was awesome growing up in there. And after that, I went to Wright State. I went to Wright State for undergrad. And then I did my undergrad at Wright State. I did biomedical engineering. And from forward on, here I am today. But to get back to the question, how all that affected me as an immigrant is that since I was really young, I always sought to learn English because I knew that was the only way to get out of all that trouble in Afghanistan. I was not aware of any other thing. I did not know the political climate of how immigrants can be treated and all that stuff in here. When I came in here, I was really young, and then I went to Springfield, and I had a great time in there too. Oh, by the way, we did not eat cats and dogs in there. We had proper food. So then, till that time, I was still struggling with my English proficiency because I didn't know how to learn it. It was really interesting because coming from a different culture, being to like a new culture, like specifically U.S. culture, it was really eye-opening because a lot of norms and cultures and traditions were so different. Like in here, people do things really differently than what we do in Afghanistan. So it was, but I was really open. It really opened up my mind. I made friends from all around the world. Like specifically, when I went to Wright State, I was part of the international student community, and I had friends from like literally every country that you can name it. And it was beautiful because it opened up my mind so much to diversity and to all the welcoming people from different cultures, different nations. There was a lot of Americans too. It wasn't just all internationals. So, but yeah. So then I struggled a lot even till today. I struggled learning English because it's hard, like learning another language, and when you're like 14, 15, trying to learn a new language like as English and try to learn it academically, to compete, to be a doctor and an engineer, it's not an easy task. It has been really rough. And then other than that, I have noticed, later on I have noticed how immigrants have been treated differently in specifically in Dayton, because it's really subtle in here. It's not as obvious, but there are you can still see some differences, how people are treated and how some people behave toward immigrants because they think we're not welcome, we're not the same. Like one of the great examples was that when I went to Cincinnati for some paperwork and all that stuff, and then there was this white man, he interviewed me for the immigration paperwork and stuff, and then the instant that he saw that I'm from Afghanistan, I could just sense his behavior just changed just right away, because it made no sense. There was a lawyer were confused, everyone was confused. It's like, what is going on? Why you're being treated differently than any other one? But we have those people, you know. We also have the nice people. So as I said, I throughout my journey in US, I met the most amazing people in here. So, but yeah, anything else?
Thank you.
That's
We're
good.
gonna have Dr. Torres and Jeanette. Just in case you aren't aware, there are quite a few Afghans that have chosen this area to live. We have quite a few Afghan students in our high school. Dr. Torres, you were going to answer that question as well. Looking back on your journey, how do you think your experience as an immigrant English learner has influenced your life today?
Well, good evening all. Thank you for allowing me to participate, share my story, and maybe inform a little bit. I'm Jose Torres. I was born in Mexico City. I grew up in Chicago. Big, large community, very, very different than probably my panelists are going to be here. Big Mexican community. I didn't even know I was a minority until I left my community. That's how big it was. We were always told we're the minority. 98% of the high school that I went to was Mexican American. 50% of them were Mexican born. We walked the hallways and we spoke Spanish. You know, English was truly a second language, basically. Grew up there, went to school at University of Illinois, graduated biochemistry, went to work for Abbott Laboratories for a few years, decided I wanted to go back to school, came to Ohio for medical school, and now I am a physician at one of the area hospitals. I do internal medicine, hospitalist. I also teach medicine, and I also volunteer here at the Centerville schools as a math, biology, chemistry, and sometimes Spanish. So as I alluded to, my story is different. I came when I was 5 years old. I was brought here by my parents. We were not evading a war. We were not being persecuted. We came here because my parents believed that this was a better nation for us to improve our situation. So we came here. I did my schooling there. It was interesting because they had a Chicago public school system had a system already in place. They had so many migrants from Mexico that they already had a system in place where bilingual teaching for the first 3 years of first, second, and third grade, bilingual teaching until fourth grade, then you were placed into the general population. That was fine and dandy, but by fourth year, you were on your own basically. No more bilingual, no more support from any other language specialist. So you either had to have learned the language in 3 years, or you were going to struggle a little bit. How did people struggle? How did students struggle then? Well, unfortunately, the problem comes, and this is very, very evident here as well too, is what language do we speak at home? We don't speak English at home. We speak Spanish. So our vocabulary is stagnant at that. What we learn in school and what we have to be repeated at school. So we were not read in English because our parents didn't know how to read English. We were not. You know, try to get to a spelling bee when you don't even know how to pronounce the word. And then any English teachers in here, I'm sorry, but silent letters, come on. You know, too many rules, way too many rules for this English language. Like my other panelist said, it's a tough language. It really is a very tough language. I before E, except after, you know all those, right? So it was difficult. So by the time you get to high school, of course, high school, you're back in the class where a lot of Spanish speakers. The teachers are all English speaking. Some are Spanish speaking as well too. But the emphasis is not college. It's not how do you progress in your education. The emphasis is how do we graduate you, right? Minimum, get you out there. I enter my high school career with 1,510 freshmen. We graduated 289 seniors. 50 of us went to college. 20 of us maybe went further. Why is that? Many different reasons. Migration back and forth, dropping out back then, drop out, back in the late 70s, 80s, your parent could drop you out at 16. Just sign this and you're done. And of course, family was important, needed financial, things like that. So I get to college. I thought I was good in math. I did college algebra. Ooh, college algebra. I find this thing called calculus. I've never heard of this calculus. Well, what is this calculus? So not very well prepared. What should have taken 4 years took 5 maybe, 5.5, because you start out here instead of here, and you have to go through everything. So it's a little bit different at that aspect. Now, coming forward, living in Centerville, system here is amazing. That's one of the reasons why we did not go back to Chicago. You look at the end of year program here, they tell you how many students graduated, where they went, how many scholars, how many GPA with a 5.0 and better. How do you get a 5.0 and better? I don't understand that one either. So yes, staying here helped. That's one of the things that we always look into and should be looked into is what sacrifice did you come here for? What sacrifices were made for you to come here? And the big question is that I'm always going to allude to is, why are you here? Why are you here? Are you here to better your life? To why? That's always the question in the back of my mind. Every lecture that you go to that I'm presenting, that's going to be that's the question that I'm always going to ask. Always turn back to yourself and say, why are you here and how are you going to get there? Your parents, whoever brought you here, made that sacrifice. And I'll allude to this in my second question. Made that sacrifice to bring you here. What are you going to do with that? All right. This country has the opportunity of getting you through 12th grade. You have the opportunity to go to college. A 5-year-old from Mexico City coming to the U.S. with their parents and just a briefcase and nothing but $5 or $20 in their pockets, made it to this stage. I don't want to toot my own horns. I let other people do that, but this is why this panel is here, to show that immigrant population that there is a way to be successful. There is the opportunity here. You just have to find. It's not going to be easy. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not going to be easy. These panelists will say it wasn't easy, but there is that opportunity there. If you want to go to college, you'll find a way to go to college. If you want to go to medical school, you find a way to go. If you want to be a teacher, you want to be an engineer, there is a way to do that. It's not going to be easy, but you have to look into yourself first and say, why am I here and what am I going to do with this? Yeah, English was difficult. I agree. English was difficult. The rules are incredible, but with hard work, reading, tutoring, you could get that. Remember, everybody out there, all the students that are immigrants, everybody, you have to realize that the MCAT is not in any other language but English. ACT is in English. You have to be able to dominate that language somewhat to get a little bit higher and higher. My recommendation to everybody that's learning English, keep learning it. Keep practicing it. It'll open up a lot of doors. It will open up a lot of doors. Thank you.
shaped your views on the importance of community and belonging?
Hi, I'm Selena. I am from Palestine. I immigrated at 1 year old and came with my family. We originally came here to the United States because of the war that was going on overseas, and we've been here ever since. And I am a Centerville High School graduate and an Ohio State graduate, and I plan to apply to PA school soon. In terms of my experiences, most of them were in school because that's where I was, that's where I spent most of my time. And what I realized early on was a lack of cultural knowledge and religious knowledge surrounding different, religions, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, whatever it was. But especially with me being Muslim and me being Palestinian, I saw a big gap there with knowledge and understanding what it meant to be those things. And whenever Ramadan or Eid would come, which are our holidays, oftentimes people would be complexed, what is that? Why aren't you eating or drinking during lunchtime? And oftentimes people would it would just kind of make me feel a little isolated in terms of that, because there wasn't knowledge with people, my peers or my teachers. And so, and especially speaking Arabic, I learned English at a very young age, and I also learned Arabic right alongside of it. And I would honestly be kind of embarrassed when my mom would speak to me in Arabic in front of my friends, because I was like, that's not cool. But then I grew up a little bit more, and I realized, this is what makes me different. This is what makes my identity, and I should be proud of it. And so when I was younger, I kind of felt like an outsider. But then over the years, people started to be a little bit more curious about where I was from, being Palestinian, being Muslim. And I know being Muslim is something that's kind of a touchy subject with a lot of people who don't understand it because of what's seen online. And some of my peers during middle school might come up to me and be like, oh, how's ISIS, or how's this, how's that? And talk about terrorist groups. And so it was my opportunity to kind of educate them, no, that's actually not what being Muslim is. It's actually about this and that, and their kind of perspective changed about it. So I saw kind of a shift from being an outsider, from people being curious, and me being able to educate them a little bit more. And so, especially me speaking Arabic, I felt very empowered later on in life to be able to share that with people, and people were more curious about it. And so those were kind of some of the things that I've begun to be more proud of and connect back to my roots. A big thing that my parents instilled in me in an early age was being proud of where I come from, being Palestinian, being Muslim, find confidence in it, and I eventually did. So I'm very happy that they kind of continued that throughout my life.
Thank you, Steve. So our next question is for Jeanette. So Jeanette, was there a particular moment or event that made you feel you truly belonged in your new community when you arrived?
Thank you, Megan. Yeah. So let me introduce myself real quick. My name is Jeanette Horwitz, and I grew up in Stockholm, Sweden. I have been here in the US for 32 years. I came here the first time when I was 15. I spent a summer in New Jersey learning English, and then I did a high school year in California. And then I decided I wanted to travel and learn more English, so I decided I was going to go to school at the University of Cincinnati for what I thought would be a year, and then continue in Sweden. But it ended up being a degree, and then a graduate degree, and then I got married, and then I had kids, and then I ended up staying. So my family actually live in Sweden. It's just me that came here to the US. So Megan, you asked if there was a moment where I felt a sense of belonging. If you look at me, I might look, I don't think there's a thing as look American. We are very diverse, right? But if you look at me, you might not think I'm from somewhere else but Centerville. I have my blonde hair and my blue eyes. So I never felt that I didn't fit in that way. But language was always what set me apart. So I learned English when I grew up in Sweden, but I still had to learn a lot when I came here. I was not fluent when I came here. So the language was a big deal for me to feel like I fit in. And I think when I began to understand jokes, cultural references, TV shows that people grew up watching that I hadn't seen, but maybe I saw when I was older, that's when I started to feel a sense of belonging. My background is teaching English as a second language. So I've spent most of my life doing that, and I think doing that too, I've always communicated to my students the importance of learning the language to feel that you belong. You don't have to be perfect. When I was younger, I felt embarrassed about my accent. I didn't want anyone to know. But later on, I've come to really embrace it. And now I kind of appreciate if somebody says, you have an accent, where are you from? Because it opens up to discussion and we can talk about things. So I would say really language, when that started to click, that's when I felt the sense of belonging.
Megan, hold on a second. Let me mention that the cards that you received when you signed in are for questions. You write your question on the card, raise your arm, and Roberta will pick up your card so that we can ask your question to the panel. Thank you.
Selena, we're back to you. So what accomplishments are you most proud of since immigrating?
Is this working? Okay, great. One of the main things that my parents really instilled in me when I was a young age, and me and to my siblings, was hard work and dedication. I know that's a value that a lot of us share. And that was something that, was passed on from their families. We come from a very educated background. My parents went to college and my grandparents, and, we came to the United States, for opportunity and for education and safety. But this was something that my parents really wanted us to continue, pursuing. And so, I'm very proud that not only me, but my siblings as well were able to, join clubs, not only in high school, sports, everything, get involved as much as we could, despite being different. But we eventually found our place in Centerville, Over time, things kind of got better and people started to accept us a little bit more, and people started to be a little bit more curious about where we were from, which I did really appreciate. And so, we eventually went on to college and everything like that. And my brothers also, went to Ohio State, and they're doing what they need to do and, being educated, and they wanted to eventually serve in their army. So they're currently in the military also, and they wanted to kind of give back to their country because that was very important to them as well. And another thing that I'm proud of is how well we have adjusted to the American lifestyle. When my parents first came here, we didn't know what PTO was. We didn't know what these certain clubs were. And so it was our responsibility to kind of tell them, this is what our teachers said, this is what we did, and eventually we kind of found our place and found where we wanted to fit in. And so we eventually got to where we needed to be, all of us supporting each other. And so now we're going to be going on doing great things. And I think events like this are great opportunities to show that, you can be educated, you can continue to move forward in your career, and how important it is to show people that, there are opportunities for that. So I think what Megan is doing and her team is great for people and for kids. To see that, you can become something and there are resources for you. And another thing I did want to mention was, those resources out there. A lot of immigrant families, they don't know that they exist. So my family, they wanted to have the resources for us, but they were mostly focused on, having us have shelter, being safe, having food on the table, because that was their, priority. But I think, having that outreach to immigrant families is so great. And especially having events like this where you invite immigrant families is even better, because it's going to help so many kids.
Selena, thank you so much for sharing that. And as someone that works with English learners here in our school, I notice a lot that families that are newly arrived here, their first connection point is the school. And how overwhelming, they come to their teachers to ask, how can I get insurance? Where can I get my driver's license? All these questions. And we really need the community to wrap around our new community members. And I think that's a little glimpse of how overwhelming, even just what things mean, where to go. So that's definitely an important point to mention. Gulzada, so how has immigration impacted your family? So your family kind of has a whole story as well attached and has since followed you here, so.
Yeah, so my family's story goes back in Afghanistan when my brother served the army. Because of their dedication to helping the U.S. Army, they got in grave danger because of the Taliban. They came after my family. They threatened my family. They abducted some of the people that we know that were close to us because of our connection to the U.S. military. So the fall of Afghanistan, that's when my family were able to migrate to U.S. And then I have a huge family. I have 7 brothers and 4 sisters. It's a huge family. It's 25 plus people. But gladly everyone was able to evacuate. Everyone was able to come here. When they came here, the hardest part was when they arrived to Dayton, because it was I never knew how hard it would be not knowing the language and trying to navigate American life in here. So for my family, I stood up for them and I just like navigated all the way for them and just showed them how things are. And till today, they still don't know a lot of things. As you guys mentioned, they are not aware of how to get things done and how to just basically get like an insurance, simple as that, because they're so new to this. They're not used to all that stuff. So yeah, being an immigrant in here, it's been really hard. It's been really challenging, but I see the good side of it. They're safe, and my family, they're like really glad to be here because they think of America as a land of opportunity, which it is. It's not. But all the kids, I mean, they're all going to high school. Everyone is adjusting really well right now, and we're really glad because a lot of people, specifically in the areas that we live, in the schools that the kids goes to, they don't see as much hatred and all that stuff toward the immigrants, specifically my family. So I haven't heard much of the bad stories on the bad sides. But yeah, everyone is really adjusting really well, and I hope that continues like that. But the situation right now, it's kind of tricky. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think when I'm listening to you, Gulzada, I'm thinking about so many students I work with that come and share heavy stories, like things that I can't even imagine experiencing. And I think it's just always a good reminder behind every immigrant. There's so much history and story, to unlock there, and just power and resilience. So, Dr. Torres, you were going to share with us how your perception of the United States has changed and evolved.
Sure, Megan. Before I start, that's a great question. When did I know I was proficient in English? I'm like, wow. My answer was when I couldn't tell you what language I was dreaming. I couldn't figure out. I mean, people were asking me what language are you dreaming of? Don't know. This question I picked because it's kind of a little bit on the controversial side, a little bit on, opinionation side, but at the same time, it's an important topic, that a lot of immigrants and a lot of U.S. citizens also throughout the years. I've been here for almost 50 years, okay? I've seen, I came here when there was a war going on. There was the Vietnam War was going on. I've seen, many presidents, many elections, and, so it's an important question because even the native-born Americans have changed their perspective on the U.S., which is unfortunate sometimes, on what their opinions are and some of the rhetoric that comes out of it as well too. Let me start by saying this first. Three days ago, Mexico and almost 90% of Latin America celebrated their independence. Not the Cinco de Mayo, it is September 16th, okay? September 16th. I acknowledge that in my heart. I said Mexico celebrated it. I didn't say my country, Mexico. I said Mexico celebrated it. I am Mexican, but my culture is here and here. I don't need a country to say what my culture is. I acknowledge that, yeah, Mexico is my country of birth, but I've lived here 50 years. I have minimal relationship with that country, although there's still a little bit of family there, though. So I'll come back to that point. Every immigrant that I've come across has a story. We can all write a book on how on what our experiences have been coming to the U.S. I can guarantee you there's 4 chapters in this book. First chapter, sacrifice. Second chapter, journey. Third chapter, struggles. And fourth chapter is accomplishments. And then my final thought on the last thing of the book would be allegiance. and I'll get back to that. We've heard the sacrifices that a lot of our panelists have done here, the families that had to leave the countries, why, where, for what reasons. Culture, language, persecution, whatever it was. That's one of the chapters that you'll see in every book, and every immigrant has that chapter in there. The journey you got here. How did you get here? Did you have to cross the border? What border did you cross? Did you come in boat, airplane? How is it that you got here? Did you have to go from one country to another, wait in one country, go to another country, wait in another country before you were able to come here? So yes, the route is important. What happened during those experiences too? That's the journey. I can tell you all of us have that chapter in our book. What struggles that we had when we got to the US? Number one, we all said it, language. Number one is the language. Number two, people not understanding our culture and we not understanding theirs. That's the important one. We not understanding their culture, this culture as well too. Example, very simple example. I can tell you that my family still believes that American food is quote unquote yucky. And I asked them, why do you say that? Can you say it a little bit differently? Like, can you say American food doesn't have a lot of spice or flavor to it, and I like spice. Okay, great. See, you could say that. On the other hand, same thing goes the other way. A lot of people don't like Mexican food. It's too spicy. How can you eat that stuff? Can you say it a little bit different? Mexican food is good, but it's a little spicy for my taste. Come together, be able to say each other what they mean without insulting each other. The rhetoric on both sides is, you have to be able to control that. That's my biggest concern for this nation that I've seen since I've gotten here, since I've been able to follow the political realm, the society realm, the immigration realm. We have gone away from being able to disagree with each other, be able to, and it's okay. You could have your own opinions, but we're able to disagree without that rhetoric of I hate you because you disagree with me. You don't think the way I think. I hate you. No, let's just agree to disagree and be friends, and let's go have a beer, bar, whatever. But yeah, that's one of the big things that I've seen in this nation is it's been pulling us apart, and that's something that we can try to control on both sides of the aisle as well too. And I don't mean political aisles and immigrants, different places, different people from different places as well too. So you don't have things that like are said about Springfield. You got to control that thing. Accomplishments. Here they are. Accomplishments. What accomplishments have you set your goals to? How do you get to those accomplishments? The opportunity this country gives you will always be there, no matter what political realm is in control. You will have that. I told you earlier, I didn't know I was the minority until I left my community and started college. I'm like, oh, where's everybody at? So, yeah. Successful schooling, language, and again, do you dream in what language do you dream in? That's a big one too. I guess I'm going to finish with alliance. My wife told me to be careful with this one. I pledge allegiance to a flag that has stripes and stars, and to the republic for which it stands. And I think I'm just going to leave it at that because I owe everything to this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Torres. Jeanette, you were going to share, and just, with this community here, people that have come to learn and want to welcome others, what advice do you have for those of us here on what can be done to help welcome immigrants in their community.
Thank you, Megan. So I should mention what I do for a living. So I mentioned earlier that I spent most of my life teaching English as a second language. I worked at Wright State University for over 20 years, but I had the opportunity to try something new a couple years ago. So for the past 3 years, I've worked for the city of Dayton, and I work with the Welcome Dayton program in the community engagement division. So how many of you are familiar, show of hands, with Welcome Dayton? Very good. Centerville High School has a club called Welcome Centerville Club. So how many of you are part of that are here tonight? That's wonderful. So my two sons went to Centerville High School, and they were also part of that club. That would be, what we're doing here tonight would be one of the first things that we can do as a community to help support immigrants. Attend these sorts of events, listen and learn. If you're a student, engage in a club that you can learn and meet other people who are different than you. That is very, very powerful. So through my job with the City of Dayton, Welcome Dayton, for those of you not familiar with it, is a program that supports the integration of refugees and immigrants into the community. And the program has been around since 2011, so it's not a new program. It started when there were some issues with discrimination towards immigrants in the city, and people came together and said, what can we do about this? But let's look at what we've already done, because we've done a lot of good things already as a city. But what else can we do? And out of that grew the Welcome Dayton program. It's really a community initiative that depends on community members volunteering their time, expertise, background knowledge, whatever they do for a living, to contribute to all the different programming and outreach and advocacy that we do. So I would say also, get to know your neighbors. In the city of Dayton, we have 65 neighborhoods. Many of those neighborhoods have neighborhood associations or business associations. So one of the things that we do is try to introduce immigrants and refugees to their neighborhood associations, or if they own a business, to the business association, so that they can get to know each other. We want immigrants and refugees to have a voice in the community. City of Dayton has a Neighborhood Leadership Institute program. We strongly encourage and recruit immigrants and refugees to participate in that program. It's a 13-week leadership program that takes place every year. Because again, we want them to have a voice and a seat at the table. That's very, very, very important. But again, coming back to the neighbor, get to know people who are different than you. Reach out to them. If you see something, see somebody needing help, anybody has a question, reach out a hand and try to connect with them. I think that's really important, and maybe now more than ever. So those are just a couple of things. I know we're going to have some time for questions too, so I don't want to take too long, but happy to talk more about Welcome Dayton with anyone who would like to know more about the program. We have a website, welcomedayton.org. Lots of information on the website. We are doing a number of listening sessions in the county, in Montgomery County. We'll have the 5th listening session on October 10th in Kettering. That is another way to support immigrants, to get out in the community, get to know them, find out who they are, what they need, and what can we do to make your community better. So we've been doing this for over 2 years now. We're wrapping these up this year in order to kind of make Montgomery County a more welcoming county for immigrants and refugees. Thank you.
Person in the audience that wants to share, so I'll hand the mic over to them in just a minute, but connected to what Jeanette just said, I wanted to say, after our audience member shares, we're going to go into a time where you can just network with each other. On the tables back here, we have a bunch of snacks, and those were provided by immigrants in our community that have businesses selling baked goods and other food items. So we really would love for you to try that, and we have all their information, so connected to how you can support. Again, a lot of people come, and I think for a lot of the wives, sometimes you don't have a car or you don't have the language skills, and so selling food or handicraft or things like that are often the beginning for them to get some income. So if you're looking to support your neighbors who are newly arrived, that's a great way. We have our Welcome Centerville Club here, kids, a lot of you are here. So there's a lot of people here to network with. Introduce yourself to a new face. There's a lot of different stories in this room. And again, when we hear the narratives painted about people that don't know the people they're talking about, we want to remember these people. And the people, I work with immigrants every single day. When I hear those stories, they're like, the people I work with, my colleagues and my students, are some of the best people I've ever met, and I say that every year, and I really, really mean it. I'm not exaggerating. They really inspire me every single day. Those are who immigrants are, and we just got to keep that narrative, forefront. So,
If you have a question, write it on the card. Roberta will pick it up. Raise your hand. If we don't get an answer tonight, we will post an answer on our website, cwtdiversity.org.
All right. Well, I think I'm actually between you and some really good food back there, so bear with me. If you don't know me, my name is Jason Riley. I'm the chair for the Centerville-Washington Diversity Council. Do we have a couple more? Let's go ahead and do the question, and then I'll finish up.
Okay, sorry, I guess we're gonna ask one more question. So this is from the audience, and I think it was for Dr. Torres. And we'll just keep it brief because everyone wants to eat, okay? So how can we foster respect and mutual understanding of culture between students in school at young ages? An example is like celebrating culture days or international days.
Great question. I think just from what we're promoting here as well too, but that's just as I just explained. We do have the Hispanic Heritage Month that just started. Learn a little bit about that. I know my wife and Megan are involved in bringing articles and bringing things to show to students and talk about stories of Mexico. The big one example that my wife always gives is the meaning of the piñata. Build the piñata and actually learn the history of it. That's a great way to introduce the students to different cultures. Other cultures from Guatemala, from all the other countries, things like that. I agree with with those a little bit of history, especially Spanish classes here do very well, very good job in actually promoting heritage from the Latin Americans. So I think things like that. I think coming to these type of events, making sure that you listen to the other side of the story. You always try to listen to it and make your own judgment, make your own and under controlled environments. You can't get everything from CNN and you can't get everything from Fox. You got to do your own research. And that way you can start putting into your own mind what is true and what is not true.
Thank you. I want to thank you so much for sharing your story. I wish we had more time to listen to you all. If you have questions, please hang out. As we give you this time to hang out, come up. They're hanging out here, so come up and ask them questions. And please enjoy the food. There is so much food. I highly, highly recommend those yummy treats back there. Thank you again.
Just do a few thank yous for everybody. So first, thank you to Megan. She's a rock star. Thank you to our host, Centerville City Schools and Centerville High School, and the Welcome Centerville Club. We really appreciate you taking. This is the largest turnout we've had post-COVID for any one of our Voices and Stories panel. We want to thank Community Services for the deaf, for our ASL interpreter, and the Miami Valley Communications Council. Richard back there for doing our recording. You'll be able to find this once the editing is done out on NBCC's website. It'll link to their YouTube page. And our guest panelists, again, thank you so much. Someone back there could advance the slide, please. Don't feedback on what other programs you would like us to have in the community. Thank you again for coming.